Hello and welcome to Film Seizure. My name is Charles Moore. With me, as always, are Jeffrey Arbuckle. Say hi,
Call
Jeffrey Arbuckle.
me, call me Little Jeff.
Little Jeff.
Little Jeff.
You
Jeff.
are a hack, man. Um, and
I've
Jason
been
Oliver.
beaten up quite a bit these last couple of episodes.
And Jason Oliver. Hi, Jason.
Hey, my or by my more formal name, Jason Olivier.
Jason Olivier. This week, we are doing for our third Western film, 1992's Unforgiven by Francis Ford Coppola. Just kidding. It's
By
Clint
Metallica.
by
Wait,
Metallica.
they're canceled now.
No, 1992's Clint Eastwood film, Unforgiven,
It's
which
not just
is
any 1992 film. It's the best picture of
it is the best picture of 1992.
It was indeed. Who did it beat, Jeff? Tell us real quick.
Well, I don't remember all of them, but the big one to beat was The Crying Game.
Oh,
Yes, Steph and I were talking about this. I can't remember the other
Hang on a
the
second.
other couple that were in there. Yeah, while you're looking,
I got it. I got it. It was a pretty good year. It beat The Crying Game, A Few Good Men, Howard's End, and The Scent of a Woman.
There you go.
nice. Hooah.
Hooah!
Um, I kind of alluded to this, but this film was originally with Francis Ford Coppola. It was given to him in the I think the early 80s.
The
And
script had been sticking around for like 10 or 15 years.
yeah, so it was an old script. It landed in Clint Eastwood's lap, but his script reader, shouldn't we all have script readers, like people that read scripts for us so we don't have to do it? Said it was trash.
I can't afford that for you guys.
Yeah. His script reader said it was trash, so it just sat and sat and sat. So I think Clint Eastwood sat on this for a good 10 years before he decided to make it. Even like once he decided to make it, he's like, I have a few other projects I want to do first.
It's interesting that the guy who wrote it, David Webb Peoples, wrote some really good stuff.
Yeah.
He was a co-writer on Blade Runner. He also wrote some schlock. I'll be honest. He Lady Hawk's pretty good. Leviathan is terrible, but I love it. It's just an alien ripoff.
Underwater alien, right?
Underwater alien ripoff. Yeah.
Yep. It's the movie I always confuse with The Abyss and wish I was watching The Abyss instead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, but it's like if you mash up The Abyss and Alien for sure. Yeah,
sure.
Mash the two up. But my personal, not my personal favorite. This is obviously a joke, but I really like this movie. He wrote and directed this movie called The Blood of Heroes,
Oh,
also known as The Salute of the Jugger, and it is this post-apocalyptic flick starring Rutger Hauer and Joan Chen about this futuristic game, like gladiatorial game that is kind of a cross between lacrosse and rugby.
oh my God.
Called Jugger. And his movie is fucking awesome. Like, it is just ridiculous. Rutger Hauer's acting his face off in this terrible movie. Like,
Well, you had me at Rutger Hauer because
yeah.
he is like a hero of the 80s movies for me. Like,
You gotta see this flick. As far as I know, it's never gotten like a really good Blu-ray release, but it's usually on Prime. Look for it under The Blood of Heroes. Wow.
I'm in. I am in.
It's a blast. It's a blast.
I am in. Um,
Well,
so
he
yeah,
also, I mean, he wrote 12 Monkeys.
Yeah, but that came after, obviously.
Okay.
I was
going to say, it's like, whoa, wait.
Yeah. But yeah, that came after, a few years after this. I don't know when he actually wrote 12 Monkeys. So that'd be interesting to know how long that script had been out there. And apparently this one had been kicking around a while. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember it being like, I think this one had, like, I remember hearing that what we said about Clint Eastwood having it, that I want to say that I think Clint Eastwood talked about having this basically sit on his desk for 10 years in the same spot before he actually like got to it and did it. I mean, he had to do Pink Cadillac first, god damn it.
Yeah.
I
Pink
wonder how
Cadillac.
much. I wonder how much this movie be getting made has a debt to Dances with Wolves.
Bet a
Um,
lot.
Yeah,
I think definitely some from what I read. And Eastwood himself was like, I didn't set out to like do a Western film. He's like, I never really picked the popular trending movies. In fact, I tried to go against
yeah,
what was popular, but obviously Dances with Wolves being a huge success, what, 2 years earlier?
yeah. 2 or 3 years. Yeah,
Yeah, probably lent itself to getting this done. Um, and a lot of the actors, like I think Hackman read the script and said he didn't want to do it, but then Eastwood said, I'm not going to glorify the violence. I think it was Hackman. I might be saying this wrong. Sorry. But he roped in these people based on his own clout, right? Like Morgan Freeman was like, well, Clint's attached. I'll do it. Right. Like that's
right.
basically how a lot of the people ended up in this movie, which is probably the case in a lot of
It's
Hollywood
funny.
films.
It's funny that Gene Hackman was that reticent to do it because what, like 2 years later, he did The Quick and the Dead, where it was almost like a super amped up like glorification of the old west.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Hackman that had the hesitancy to do it, but yeah.
Because I
Um,
always, it's kind of interesting to me because I always kind of see these the both of these roles, Hackman's role in Unforgiven and Quick and Dead, as almost the same character, but with a lot of cocaine in between. Hackman is so insane in The Quick and the Dead. It's like he amped up his role big time from his role in Unforgiven,
his
and like
role in
shed
Unforgiven is
and like
pretty
and like and
awesome.
like shed it shed all sense of nuance and gray, right? Because his, yes, you're absolutely right. His character in Unforgiven is incredible. It really is. It's so interesting. Um, and his character in The Quick and Dead is just straight villain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't seen that in a long time. Is that Shane Black or who wrote that one?
I don't know who wrote it, but Sam Raimi directed it.
Oh,
It's
Raimi. Thank
very
you.
much a Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
So yeah, Unforgiven 1992, as Jeff pointed out, Best Picture, and I think for very, very good reason.
yeah. Yeah.
It's a very kind of anti-Western
Uh-huh.
Western. It has a lot to say with very little said, at
Yep.
least by it's Clint Eastwood again, right? Like he's so quiet in almost all of these movies. It's like going back to the Leone stuff we
He's
talked.
actually acting in this though. Like he's bringing a lot of nuance
He's
into
not the man
everything
with
he
no
does.
name for sure.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
He's no longer playing a caricature. He's playing the caricature with all of that stripped away, right?
yeah. What you
And
are
and as a
when
reflection of what he used to be, right?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can use the man with no name as kind of a basis for what his character was, maybe even closer to Tuco from the way he's described almost from the last movie. But
Sure.
yeah,
Sure.
I don't know. I would almost even say, yeah, he's really Angel Eyes.
but yeah, I it could
Fair.
be any of them, any
Yeah.
amalgamation of those characters from the good, the
Yeah.
bad, and the ugly. He was just not a good person.
Right.
Oh, he was an
Um,
evil son of a bitch.
Evil
yeah,
son of a bitch. Yep.
shot people that didn't deserve it, all sorts of stuff.
You can also, I always kind of take his character in the Leone movies as almost sort of a grain of salt, right? It's like Mad Max in the Wasteland movies, you know?
Yeah.
These are kind of like tales of legend, like, and he's the winner, right, in all of those movies. So the history favors the winners, right? So this is the word of mouth that was told about the man, but but we get kind of the sanitized version
Well,
in
this
those
is
movies.
yeah.
But in
This
reality,
is the
he
real
was a
guy.
real son of a bitch,
Right.
right?
yeah,
And you get a sense of that kind of like revisionism even within the Old West, the real Old West, with the character of the writer, right?
Oh
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
Beauchamp.
Yeah, so there's that whole thing
Well,
happening here too, where I was like, we're revising the movie Western, but we're also revising like the true history of the details of the gunfighter, right?
Right.
Right.
It's really interesting.
Well, it's this movie is based very heavily on story.
Mhm.
And story of the characters as perceived by other characters in the movie, like their reputation precedes
Yes.
them, but their realism is a lot different than that.
Right.
I mean, the movie begins and ends with a story about how did an otherwise good and moral woman end up with Clint Eastwood's character.
When she died, it was not at the hands of money, which is William Money,
Right.
as her mother might have expected, but of smallpox. That was 1978 or 1878, I think. 1878. Sorry.
Yeah.
Death
2
by
years
smallpox.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, right there, you're kind of setting up the idea that this guy is considered, at the very least, to be bad news. But then when you see him, he's we're kind of entering the movie like the Schofield Kid does.
Yeah.
Right.
Where it's like, wait, you don't look like some mean son of a bitch. You're, he's struggling to wrangle hogs that have fever.
Yeah. I mean, his name is very close to William H. Bonney.
Right.
So you kind of get the feeling that he's a retired, like what would Billy the Kid have become if he found a woman and settled down?
Yeah.
Kind of
Right.
thing.
Yep.
Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Hey, that's a good lead into next week too.
Yeah, kind
Yep.
of. Yeah. Young Guns 2. Oh, wait. We're not watching Young Guns 2.
See the size of that chicken?
But no, but yeah, so like, but at the same time, we also are getting a story being woven about two people who commit a crime at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
One person commits a crime, the other person actually has some morality to him, and it's a little sad what ends up happening to him.
Very sad, actually.
Agreed.
He's one of the
Absolutely
most
agreed.
tragic people in this movie.
Exactly. And I mean, and you see it in Clint Eastwood's face after he hits him.
And Ned, especially Ned.
Oh yeah, Ned's had enough after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the movie really kind of begins with this whorehouse, run by the bad guy from The Teacher. That cracks me up that this was his last movie, and The Teacher is.
That was his last movie?
No, this is Unforgiven is his last movie. He died in 2020, but this was his last movie.
Interesting.
The Teacher is an old 70s exploitation movie that I've covered in a couple of different ways of B-movie enema. Jason thinks it's a very bad movie. I think it's actually pretty decent.
Which one?
The Teacher,
I don't remember that one.
with the kid who ends up in a relationship with his teacher.
Oh, it was just so boring. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
I
god.
don't
Yeah,
think
this
it
guy
is.
was in Wacko.
Yeah, he's an exploitation actor.
Yeah.
Well, his face is very recognizable.
It is
Exactly.
very
Like-
recognized. He's been in some okay stuff. He was in Burnt Offerings. He was in Return from Witch Mountain. That's weird. Oh my god, he's in like a good 2.5.
Yeah.
He's Hector
Yes,
Savage.
I just saw
Yeah,
him the other
yeah.
day in that. Yeah, he gets
So-
a towel thrown at his face.
Yeah, but
Yes.
you're right. He's very recognizable face.
Yeah,
Right.
he sings Memories really well, actually. Sorry, Jeff. I keep.
Yeah, so he's this is Skinny's hotel, and he basically, we find out later, he kind of owns the whores here, under contract, and it's real fucking
Kind of slavery, I like.
yeah, it
Oh, for
does. Well, because even Little Bill, who's Gene Hackman, even kind of comments on that.
Yeah.
But it gives him an easy out to solve this problem. So, which is kind of the thrust of the whole movie at that point.
Yep.
But yeah, so one guy is having sex with Strawberry Alice, who's like the madam, basically. And they hear commotion in the other room, and the guy's buddy has beaten up his hooker and slashed her face, because she giggled that he has a small pecker. So already out of the gate, we're dealing with some themes of masculinity gone haywire.
Male inferiority and
Yep, all of that. And so the girls are able to basically get the guys kind of hogtied essentially to each other, and they bring in Lil Bill, who's Gene Hackman, who basically is going to whip the guys, both of them, even the accomplice, even though he had nothing to do with what's happening. To which Strawberry Alice,
he kind of held her down at first and then realized it was wrong and then
yeah,
tried to.
I mean, but
He's a bit of
the
an
least.
accomplice, but he does kind of relent, right?
Yeah, he's the least of the two,
For sure.
But anyway, Lil Bill's going to whip him, to which Strawberry Alice, who's played by Frances Fisher, says,
who has a child with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Who said, basically, it's like, this is all you're going to do. You know, he's basically disfigured Delilah and all of that. And so he then, when Skinny basically says, I had a contract, what am I going to get compensated? Because now I have goods that I can't sell.
Damaged goods. Yep.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, that's the case, huh? And so that basically gives Bill Daggett the chintzy fucking way out of this. He's weak, in my opinion. Even though he does have some strength, it's all misguided. He's
someone else who is kind of living life based on his legend a little bit.
And his title as sheriff.
And his title, sure. And he got his title because of his legend, no doubt.
Probably. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So basically he arranges it to where these guys are going to pay Skinny with
7 ponies for a cut.
Ponies.
Or yeah,
exactly. Which means they really aren't out anything, and they really aren't going to face any kind of justice. So Alice is like, all right, everybody, what money do you have? We're going to hire a gunman to give us the justice we need, which is also misguided, but it
frontier justice.
It's frontier justice. This is what, I mean, you keep your shit in line, or you might get you might face justice at the end of a barrel.
We shouldn't undersell this. 7 ponies is kind of a big deal.
I mean, it is, but it's not. It's the wrong payment for
that is more. I think the better way to say it is
right.
They're not paying the right thing.
Yeah, I mean that would be like a judge sentencing a rapist to pay for damages of a broken in convenience store. You know, I mean it's the wrong judgment for, you know, and it was done totally based on Bill probably saying, oh, these guys didn't mean anything by
it. Also debases her humanity, right?
Exactly.
It reinforces societally that she's just a good to be sold.
They're lesser. They're felt and looked at as lesser people.
Right. And Alice even says as much. She basically said, we may be whores, but we're not animals. We're not livestock, basically.
Right. But that's how they're being treated. Yeah.
Exactly. So it is kind of tying in a ways that slavery still stuck around after slavery ended. So it's and it also there is a little bit of a sort of anti-capitalism in that too, because it is, you're paying off the business owner, not the, you know, you're paying off the more powerful of that dynamic of
right.
that workspace.
The thing that appealed to Little Bill is that the business owner might lose business because no one will want to have sex with this woman that he paid for. It has nothing to do,
the woman
very little
to
do with the woman at all.
She hasn't gotten hurt any justice whatsoever.
She gets no restitution.
Right.
Is that the right word? I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. And so there is that sense that the business is more important than the individual.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's
so
just say I digress, and
I digress.
So they start telling every cowboy from out of town that comes through,
Put out
that's
the
paying,
clarion call to all
Yeah.
to bounty hunters.
$1,000.
$1,000 bounty. And this eventually gets to the Schofield kid, who eventually gets to William Money, because the Schofield kid wants to partner with William Money because he's the biggest, baddest, no good son
Well,
of
he
a
was the
bitch.
nephew of somebody that ran with Will and Ned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I love about this is that by the time the story gets to William Money, it's that this whore was cut to, like, her
It's
arm was
telephone.
cut off, like her, like,
Well, they said Will says it. I
Yeah.
suppose everything but her cunny.
right,
Yeah.
right. So
Well, yeah,
so
he plays telephone the same way when he
Right.
explains it to Ned. He adds parts.
he adds embellishment, right? Exactly. But it's sort of like this old west sort of like story that obviously is going to change from person to person, but there's also like a justification behind it.
Well, it,
Right?
it humanizes
If
her.
it does, it humanizes her, but it also is like, it's so bad we cannot let this injustice pass, even
Exactly.
though we're going to get paid to do it, right?
Right. Well,
It's a justification to yourself.
Well, I mean, okay, 30 years later, it's a lot of what's going on Twitter is
Yeah.
you are taking the claim of being righteous by
Yeah.
joining in on an injustice that has been twisted by the
Right.
time it has reached you.
And it's not to diminish what happened to her, because
Right.
it's obviously horrible, but there's a very horrible, a horrible,
my
oh Chuck,
God.
he's mouthing.
Jesus Christ.
That's
Oh my God.
I'm just gonna stop.
Sorry,
my
that's
point
why I
there.
mouthed it. So
I'm
you
I'm
sorry,
just gonna
I'm
stop
sorry,
my point
Chuck.
there
Chuck.
because that's just too good.
Let me just say something to you here. Deserves ain't got nothing to do with it. I'll let you live with that for the next hour or so while we
Thanks.
continue this.
Oh, horrible.
God, that just derailed everything.
Sorry, that's why I mouthed it, so it didn't come into play.
It was too good. It was
It's
too
a good thing I was
Plus, I
looking
had to
at
think about it for a
Jason's box
second. Like,
here.
what's he mouthing at me? It's like, oh, yeah. It's like when you get the joke and you're just like everything else, nothing else matters.
Even when I use restraint, it destroys it. You just did another metallic.
I did, and I knew it exactly when I did it. I know.
That's when I almost spit out my drink. All right,
Oh, shit.
let's wrangle these pigs in here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, we got to separate me because I have the flu, apparently.
Well, you do. So
Yeah.
One thing I do definitely like about Will Money at home is how he almost overacts his goodness to his kids.
Yeah.
Like he cannot mention his wife without saying "God rest her soul" or "your dearly departed ma" or like he's overacting that almost as if to try to convince himself that he.
That's
is
what
not
I
this
was
I was
person.
gonna say it's like a mantra.
Yeah.
Yes.
It keeps him on track. Yeah.
He does it throughout the entire movie. Whenever he's explaining himself to someone else, he's really talking to himself.
Yeah.
Until
To
until the final act, and
right, because then he is himself.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Not
and
even the
he's
final
given
act.
up
It's like
the
final
ghost.
10 minutes. It's
Yeah.
nuts.
Well,
Yeah.
but it begins. I look at the final act beginning with basically him watching the rider on the horse basically coming for his soul at that point.
But let's
The woman coming off. Anyway,
sorry.
I'm gonna wax real poetic about that whole fucking scene.
Well, let's discuss him real quick because I alluded to this earlier. He met a woman who got him off the drink, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which he is continuously saying, like, whiskey is what made me this bad person, right? Like, that's his belief, is like, once I stopped drinking, I wasn't this person anymore. It's obvious the entire movie that's not true,
Right.
but that is what he tells himself. And he continuously throughout the movie is like, nope, can't drink. I am not that person anymore. Like, it's his own personal barrier, right? This is how he convinces himself he's not that.
Well, to some degree though, I can understand where he's coming from. It's that person who he is always there, but the way it is able to come out, his like Jekyll and Hyde solution is the whiskey, right?
The drink enables him.
Yeah, the drink allows his evil nature to emerge. Yeah,
That's
and
a
I mean,
cop out. It's a
I don't think
cop out.
so.
It
I don't
it
think so.
it may lessen his inhibitions, but for him,
I I
it's a
I
cop
think
out.
I know what you're saying. Like you can't blame who the evil things he's done on whiskey, but he knows
But if he
that
has
he
whiskey,
can keep it at bay by staying away from whiskey.
yeah. I
Like
mean, I get that, and I'll allow him some of that, but in reality, the bad things he does later, he ain't drunk.
No,
true,
but he has
but
drank.
Yes, he has, and it's kind of stupid. I wish he drank after. Honestly, it would have made more sense to me,
I
but
thought so too. But I mean, yeah, I think that there's a I
it's
agree.
more him telling himself it than it is real. Sorry, Jason, go ahead.
No, I actually agree with your comment about you wish he had drank after. I agree with that too. But we'll get there obviously once we get to the end. But and I don't. Yeah, we should honestly just stop talking about this until we get to the end.
Yeah, my bad. My bad. It is important to
It's
note
okay.
that that's a common theme, though, throughout the movie, for sure.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. Go ahead,
So
Jeff.
yeah, so basically, I mean, because like even the Schofield kid kind of rips off the facade a little bit too, because when he thinks about what he could do, like, because I mean, the thing is that he could get some money and he could do a lot with that for the kids, for them, um, and so forth. But um, as he's kind of thinking about it, and as he's trying to like get back into the practice of shooting again, which
Yeah.
is funny because like he's
There's a lot of funny with him.
oh yeah, he's absolute balls with a handgun, but with a shotgun,
Yeah.
it's he blows that can
Well,
away.
he can't wrangle pigs. He can't get on a horse. He
No,
can't shoot a gun.
and, oh
Like,
god, the comment about how the horse and the pigs are just getting back at him for how he used to mistreat animals
Yeah.
in his bad days before he met their mom is hilarious.
it's kind
I
of a
feel
moment of
like
truth, too. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like a little bit with him having trouble getting on a horse is a little bit too much, to be quite honest.
it's a little too slapsticky.
Yeah, it doesn't feel to me like he would be that far out of practice that he
Well,
can't mount a horse.
it's not that. It's the horse itself. The horse is wild.
Yeah,
He doesn't have a tamed horse
The
anymore.
kid says that it's
that's
not a
fair,
saddle horse
because
anymore.
he
Yep.
can't break it. Yeah,
He can't
yeah,
break the horse. So
yeah.
but in his youth, he wouldn't be thinking about it. He would just hopped on the horse even if it was untamed.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
It goes
he
a little
thinks
far
too
in
much.
it goes a little far in making him look kind of inept.
Yeah, it
What's
does.
kind of
Yeah.
funny though is that once he regains his old self, he gets right on the horse.
Absolutely.
So in a way, it's kind of like a literal falling off the horse of his old ways.
I will also
Um,
say like the
agree.
alcohol could be taken as less metaphorical and more physical, because it could be taken as this is like muscle memory, right? And I need that muscle. The only way I can get to that level of muscle memory is to get to the state that I was constantly in when I was this mean son of a bitch.
Well, it's kind of the joke. I don't even know if it's a joke. Maybe there's some truth to it where people say if you study drunk, you need to take the test drunk.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. That's what
Yeah.
I'm getting at.
Well,
Yeah.
that's very possible because, like, a lot of people who do a lot of creative things or perform or whatever, they're they get high or they get drunk or they and it takes them to another level. That if they can stay at that level, the problem is that typically you can't just stay at that level.
Right.
You end up
No, you blow by it.
You blow by it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And generally, that's also all in your mind. It's like the easy way to get to what you're
state of
that
mind.
level that you're used to being at. Right.
right,
You could still achieve it, but it's harder.
right.
Yeah.
But
But it's there.
yeah.
Yeah.
But after the Schofield kid heads towards Wyoming. By the way, they're in Kansas, I believe.
Somewhere around there. Yeah, for sure.
Something like that. Because
Maybe Wyoming, actually.
Well, Wyoming is where Big Whiskey is.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
By the way, Big Whiskey is the town he's got to go to to do the thing that he doesn't want to do anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all there's the
Little
metaphor
on the
right there.
nose, buddy.
But the he shows up at Jack Daniels and like tries to take down Big Whiskey from within.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And
Anyway.
Evan Williams comes after him.
yeah, that actually worked out a little bit better than I thought it was going to as I was saying it. But anyway, so but like as he's practicing with the gun again, the daughter is terrified of him.
Yeah.
He's like, did Paul used to kill people? And like the son won't say.
I
You know?
love the way the kid doesn't respond here because it speaks volumes.
Right, exactly. It's yeah, I mean, so like like the facade has been blown away by just this rando person showing up and saying this is what's going on, and I hear you're pretty bad, you know.
And I mean that in a good way.
Exactly. He says it's exactly like that. It's the
Yep.
90s. And it had to be explained.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, so he ends up deciding it's like, you know what, I'm gonna go over to Sally Two Feathers and pick up my buddy Ned. And hey kids, I'm gonna be gone for a couple of weeks. You'll be fine.
Yeah. Oh, different times, different
Well,
times.
I mean, the 1980s, we proved that we could still be pretty fine in those
Pretty
situations.
much.
The
Pretty
1880s, they were golden.
Yeah, they could go for weeks at a time.
Exactly. If we could spend a day by ourselves in the 1980s, they could spend months by themselves in the 1880s. So so like he goes and he tells Ned everything, and they're gonna go. Now, both Ned and Will aren't the people that they used to be, although Ned still reveals some things. Like he goes into town, he gets women, he still kind of has a little bit of that older streak in him that he used to have.
He can control himself where Will cannot. Basically, like he can still indulge in not. I don't want to say this the wrong way because I'm not condoning Ned.
No,
but he can still maintain some of his old life while also maintaining this new version of himself.
Well, and the other thing could be that, Will, I mean, it is essentially told that Will was the worst of the three that used to run.
But Will is all or nothing, right? Like that's the way Will is. Ned is not that way. Will is excess in a lot of ways. Sorry.
And no, you're exactly right, because Will is the one who's constantly having to pull himself back from everything. And the only way he sees it, in a way, it's almost like his religion. His wife became his religion.
Yeah.
So so they go and he says, hey, you still pretty good with that. Was it a Winchester on his wall or over the door?
I love the gun overhanging his head.
Yeah.
It's also very lit. There's a lot of like on the nose-ish kind of stuff in this movie, but it works a lot of the time.
It works because I think the genre helps it work.
Yeah.
I mean, the Western is very, I said that last week, how I used to always think of Westerns being good guys and bad guys. And then it became this kind of violent thing, but there's still
Gray.
at the core, though, there is still good and
everything that's on the nose in this works, where everything that was similarly on the nose in Mystic River is garbage.
True.
And it's been a long time since I've seen Mystic River, and I'm not prepared to really
defend
dig into
your
that
position.
but that's my feeling. That was my feeling after I left Mystic River.
But you're right. Ned can shoot the eye off a flying bird, basically, is what.
Yes.
Like he could take that rifle off the wall and kill a moving target with ease.
Right.
Yeah.
Until he realizes that life is no longer part of him.
Right.
Yeah.
But
he thinks he can still tap into it. But he really realizes he doesn't have the stomach anymore.
Well,
he didn't want to. Yeah.
There's a big difference between tapping into that ass as opposed to tapping into killing people.
Right.
Well, there's the morality. We talked about morality a lot last week. Like the people that they're going to kill, the story, like we said, is grown.
Mm-hmm.
So killing them is justice, right? Especially it's frontier justice, like you said earlier. So Ned thinks like, these are bad people. I can kill them without
Right.
any kind of conscience about it. And then he realizes, obviously, as we'll talk about later, that he does have a conscience about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
also you got to realize this is 1881. Frontier justice is probably not a thing anymore. Not in
No,
the same way.
this is a
Because
huge theme in this movie.
exactly, because there is an entire police station of lawmen that work
Yeah.
for Little Bill. It's not like last week's movie, which was 20 years before.
Yeah.
Where, it's like towns may need to have bounty hunters come in because there isn't enough to really
Right.
police the area. It's different now. And
which is kind of the point of Gene Hackman's character, and why his
Exactly.
character is so interesting, right? Is because he didn't really give these women, or that one particular woman, the justice she deserved. He's like he's definitely over correcting on the side of law and order as far as keeping the
peace.
balance and the peace, but he's absolutely justified in his pursuit of combating this frontier justice, right?
Exactly. No guns
is-
are allowed in Big Whiskey.
No guns allowed in town. The idea of bounty hunters and bounties and assassins and everything, that is the way of the past.
But
that is no longer
he thinks of it as savage.
right.
Yeah, and
right.
that we should move forward to that point with English Bob. But first, let's just say that Ned does agree to go with William.
Yeah.
To go kill these guys. And
Right.
then we kind
Yeah.
of shoot to English Bob, who's a British bounty hunter, basically.
Yeah, he kills Chinamen, as they say,
yes.
for the railroad company. That is
Another form of slavery.
insane.
Legalized slavery. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, it's the whole idea of, it's like they run off and
Uh-huh.
he goes and he doesn't bring them back.
Right.
That is insanity.
It's full. He's fully a deterrent.
Yes.
He's the boogeyman. If you run away from the railroad, English Bob will track you down.
That's kind of really appropriate too, because calling him the boogeyman isn't real, right?
Right.
Like in general, the boogeyman, English Bob, or his story isn't real.
Right.
Right.
He has an inflated sense of self, and he's trying to make sure that his legacy,
his legend
is that he leaves behind is what is in his mind of himself.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's also what arrives in town before him.
Most certainly.
Right.
Yep.
Like his legend being English Bob is what gets him out of all situations.
Most certainly.
He is not getting himself out of situations.
As we will find out.
Yes.
And
It's important because
and most of the time it doesn't have to, right? Because he's known for just killing Chinamen, right? But there's an interesting part of the West too, and this is sort of revisionist, but he does put a target on his back, right? It's why like the big legendary gunslingers, were essentially killed, is because the next person who thought that they were going to be the next legend, right, would want to challenge them and take them down, right?
Right.
So the fact that he's gotten as far as long as he has is kind of a miracle.
Well, that's because people like William Money have retired. And it's important to note that English Bob is like the antithesis of Will, right?
He's kind of he's trying to extend the life of his legend, right? By legal means of killing. The fact that he diverges from that and comes out of the bubble of safety of working for the airlines is ultimately
the airlines
here. The airlines, right. The railroads, Jesus.
I was going to let it go.
The airlines.
Yeah. But it's funny, his story does run like right alongside of William Money's.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting because, so I kind of previewed this a little bit last week. So let's talk about this because this is important.
Yes.
Because I think English Bob is an incredibly important figure in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
So in the when this movie came out, Siskel and Ebert were a little bit hard on this movie. Siskel flat out, I think, gave it thumbs down.
That's bizarre.
Well, there were only 2 movies in his professional career that won Best Picture that he didn't give thumbs up to, and they were back to back. It was Silence of the Lambs and Unforgiven.
Hmm.
Ebert, on the other hand, said that generally the Clint Eastwood direction, the cinematography, the script for the main protagonist characters were fantastic. Gene Hackman was perfect. All of this. He said that his biggest part was Richard Harris, and he thought that that was a completely and totally unnecessary character, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that.
Yeah.
Now
I do
later
too.
he revised that opinion, but the English Bob one is it's all about story. Everything in this movie is about stories and about legends
Yeah.
and about
Yep.
what precedes people. And there's that until he runs up against Bill Daggett, who I think is everything he says he is, but he doesn't have a writer. He doesn't have a legend. He's just the sheriff of
Yeah.
this town. And he has a local legend that kind of starts to permeate through his deputies at one point.
Yep.
But you know exactly what Little Bill is the moment English Bob comes into town.
Absolutely.
And he becomes a very, very, very serious antagonist at that point. Because beforehand he's kind of doofy too, because like when Skinny tells him about the bounty that the girls have put on the 2 guys, he's trying to build a porch. He's been trying to build a house for like 20 years.
He's a bad carpenter.
He's a bad
It's
carpenter.
not a,
And
there's
he's a
not a straight
doofus.
angle in the whole thing.
Right. And he's a doofus. But he is very competent as the sheriff and as a gunman himself.
Mhm.
And so we don't see that. And then the moment English Bob comes in, it reveals that Bill is no bullshit.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
And that English Bob is bullshit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that Little Bill is the person who has a plan. Like if he's confronted by people who want to shoot him down, he even has a plan for that. You shoot the most capable, gunman, and then you kind of just take them out from that point. And
there's
and he's legitimate about this, and he has survived because of that, and he became sheriff because of that, and he is real.
That's even reinforced later. So like with the writer attaches himself to Little Bill after he realizes that
Duck of Death is
English
bullshit.
Bob is just
Duck of Death is hilarious.
the Duck of Death, yeah, is just a mirage, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's the Duck of Death. And Hackman's kind of giving him the real deal, the real stories. Is like, look, but he's also kind of like taking this opportunity to be documented, right? He's sort of interested in
Well, he's the real history.
and the writer, right? Because he wants him to tell him his story, but he doesn't seem to be embellishing it, right? And I love the demonstration he gives him before he lets English Bob go, where he pulls his gun out real fast and aims it at the writer, and he's like, "That's about as fast as I can draw and aim with any accuracy."
For
Right?
somebody who's like 15 feet away or whatever.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
he actually even qualifies that further.
Yeah. It's like, which is just goes to show you, it's like all that shit you've seen.
Oh, about the
it's-
fastest draw and the
Yeah, or heard, and it's not. He's not just telling him this; he's telling the audience this.
Yeah.
Right. It's like all this shit in all these westerns that are so revered and loved is all bullshit. Right. Like this is the reality of the situation. And I love that.
The reality.
It's this grounding moment for both the story and for the audience.
Well, the reality boils down to 2 things, really. One, luck.
Yeah.
There's nobody who gets into a gunfight that doesn't survive by way of luck.
Yeah.
And then there's strategy. You can have some strategy mixed in with your luck, And you can go in entirely with the strategy, but
You're
you
going to
gotta
increase
need
your
both.
odds.
You need
You're
both
going to
of these
increase your
things.
odds. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yep. Yep.
But it's also so while he's doing this, so he's tearing down the legend of English Bob, and he
Yep.
does it very effectively.
Yep.
But at the same time, he realizes that he can tell a story, so he kind of orchestrates the scene of, here, take this gun, give it,
Yep.
go ahead, give it to English Bob.
Yeah, because
I'll
at
kill
first,
him, basically. So it's the start of him becoming a little bit English Bob, because he's buying into a bigger legend of himself than actually exists. At
Well,
least in my opinion.
it's kind of his ego that gets him.
But that's what happened to English Bob. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yep.
you take your ego and you let someone write a story about it, you're going to fabricate your strengths.
Yeah.
And Little Bill clearly does that in this movie. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So now meanwhile, Ned and Will are headed north to Wyoming, and suddenly they're getting shot at.
Yes.
And it's not just that they're getting shot at, but everything is getting shot
You're getting shot at very poorly.
yeah, right. And Clint Eastwood quickly realizes this is the Schofield kid, and he's like, "Hey, kid," and Ned's like, "Kid, what?" It's like that's who we're meeting up with, and the kid is very nervous, and when he realizes that it's Will, then he turns the focus to, who are you with? I didn't know you were going to be bringing anybody. And then he has to eventually be talked into, Ned's going to come along with me here. And Ned starts to figure out something about the kid that seems very off. The kid also always talks about how he killed 5 people.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really important because he's trying to build a tough guy legend for himself.
His own legend. Yeah.
Right. And so, he noted, Ned, they all basically notice that, or Ned and Will basically notice that there's a storm coming. So they need to figure something out about that. And then that's when Ned realizes that the kid is reacting later towards it. And he starts to kind of play with him a little bit. And it's like, hey, kid, how good are you really with that gun? Because you kind of look like you sucked earlier. And he's like, can you shoot? He looks up and he's like, can you shoot that bird, that hawk? He's like, oh, I can shoot that hawk or whatever. And it reveals that the kid can't see.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's like, there is no eagle.
Right.
So whatever you think you can shoot isn't even there. Like,
Right.
totally destroys this kid's image of himself.
Right. And and then it's like, Will has to come in, because he's like, Ned's like, the kid's blind. It's like, he's useless to us. And Will comes in and kind of plays almost like a almost like a parental role, basically.
You say, oh, he can see 50 yards. That's long enough.
That's far enough. And Ned is like, I don't like it. I don't like this at all. But they kind of continue on. They do eventually figure out a good way for the kid to do a thing by just basically putting him right in front of the guy. But yeah, so like, you've got one person who is terrified of going back into his old life. You have somebody who thinks he can go into his old life without any problem. And then you've got somebody who's blind, who, I mean, honestly, all 3 of them are blind.
That's interesting that you say that. There's 2 things I want to say here. The first being, I don't think William Money is terrified of going into his own life. I think the story of the women getting cut up is just an excuse for him to enter into his old life because he craves it. That's the way I
could
read
be
it.
Yeah, I mean, I could go.
I think it's part of it. I think it's part of it.
But also, go ahead.
I agree to the point that he also is a person who has never really learned skills, right?
Are you talking about William or Schofield
William Money?
Kid? Yeah, okay.
William Money. Yeah. All right, we're talking about Schofield Kid.
No.
No.
You said he never learned skills. I mean, he was skilled. He's just forgotten a lot of.
No. I mean,
post.
I'm saying William Money's never learned how to farm. He's never
Okay,
learned legal ways of earning means.
sure.
Right?
He's only a killer and a thief.
Right.
Yeah.
So he at some degree he's got to reflect on the fact that what is it that I know that can earn money, and it's killing people, right?
Yep.
So it's a twofer. Yeah. Yeah, it's an excuse to get back into his old life, but it's also maybe his only way out.
Yeah.
Maybe he's convinced himself it's the only way he can provide for his family.
True.
Yeah.
And after this scene is kind of when the English Bob, and not kind of, it's like right alongside it, when English Bob's legend is being torn down, the Schofield kid tells a story at the camp of how William Money was faced with two men, and he was able to shoot his way out of that situation. And William Money's like, I don't remember. So he's not adding to his legend. Furthermore, the next day, Ned is like, hey, when the Schofield kid told that story about the two men, I remember there being three.
Yeah.
So there's this, like, right at that moment, like, William Money is, for whatever the real deal is, he's the real deal.
Right.
Right? Like
his legend isn't big enough.
yes,
Yeah.
he doesn't write the story. He doesn't reinforce the stuff. Yes, his legend isn't big enough for sure. So whatever people say about him is, yes, the reputation that precedes him isn't big enough.
Right.
Yeah, 100%. And it's it's obvious at the end of the movie, right?
Oh yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and that's really cool.
Yeah, it's great. Love it.
Yeah. So now, by the way, we should also say that English Bob didn't just get kicked out of town later. He got kicked around town first.
Sent away with a crooked dick. Sorry.
Oh yeah, and Bill is vicious when it comes to like he's not kidding. You don't bring your fucking weapons and shit into the Big Whiskey.
He makes a really big example out of English Bob. Like anyone,
that's the whole point.
Any Tom, Dick, and Harry that's coming to town to try to collect on this $1,000, sorry, it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and the bigger English Bob's legend is, to that
the better
point,
it is.
the better. Yeah,
Yes.
because I just mopped the floor with him. Yep.
Right. Well, and then on top of that, well, yeah, I mean, because the other thing is that leads up to something else later, that he makes another example of somebody that ultimately leads to his downfall.
Yes.
So so basically now our trio are coming into Big Whiskey during a storm.
Yeah.
And they go into the hotel to get drinks.
They don't notice the sign for Ordinance 14 that no firearms are allowed in Big Whiskey.
Right. And so they go into the hotel, and like Ned's like, hey man, can I take some time? I want to get some ass, basically. And the Schofield kid, of course, he's getting ass. And so that leaves Will by himself, and he's not doing so great. He's maybe got a little bit of pneumonia from the storm. He's just huddled up, which of course probably calls attention to him.
Yep.
And he gets and then Bill basically comes up to him with his deputies, and it's like, oh, I assume you didn't see the sign. And he's like, no, I didn't. And it's like, no guns. And they kicked the shit out of him too.
Yep.
And so they basically have beaten up another legendary person. But
he's given a false name. They don't know who he is. They don't care. He had a gun. They took it. They beat him up. He while he's getting the shit kicked out of him, the kid and Ned escape out the window of the horrors room that they're talking to about the bounty.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, because they're kind of there for two reasons. They want to know about the bounty, and they want to they're going to play billiards.
Right, which is code word for being a John, I guess.
Yeah, because the billiard table was torn apart and used as firewood years
Yeah,
ago.
Years ago. Yeah. Well, yeah, because even at one point they're asked about that, and they're like,
They're just here for the
just here
billiards.
and they're like, billiards. Yeah, right. Yeah. So they leave, and now Will is really not doing great. And
Seen worm faces.
yeah, and he's like, I saw was it Claudia? Was that his wife's name?
He saw her and then somebody else. Yeah, but
And
I think it is Claudia. I think you're
their
right.
faces were covered with worms. And then
The Schofield kid at this point is like, hey, we don't need him. Let's just go do it ourselves, which is hilarious because Schofield kid has been exposed like 1,000 ways to Sunday at this point, right? Or 1,000 ways to die in the West, whatever that
10,000. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. Yeah.
But Will is getting better, right? Hey, this is the second movie in a row where he was almost dead and he had to recover.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Will is getting better, and he has that really kind of sweet scene with what's her name, Strawberry Alice, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The really kind of.
Oh no, that's Delilah, who's the cut up.
Oh yeah, Delilah. Thank
is,
you.
Yeah.
He has that really kind of sweet scene where she's like, "Hey, the other boys have been taking advances on the money," and he's like, "Taking advances, huh?" He's so like Clint Eastwood in this scene. Just repeating what she says back to him in his Clint Eastwood way. And yeah, she's like, "Would you like a freebie?" And he's like, he has to kind of backtrack to explain to her that she's beautiful and like, but he's like, I have a wife. And really he's being earnest, right? Like he's like, my wife still lives in my heart, dead or alive. He doesn't say this to her, but this is his, what he's thinking. And she's like, oh, that's so sweet. You're such a nice man. I respect that.
Yeah, she kind of sees him as something that later is going to be horrifying.
Horrifying. I'm not even going to mouth it this time. Sorry.
Has he had the conversation with Ned already, or is it after, where they talk about what do you use your hand?
Oh, that was before.
That was before.
That was when they were going to meet up with the kid, because it's like, hey, do you ever go into town?
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah, to get supplies and stuff.
But he's like, wait, I don't even really miss it anymore.
Yeah.
Which kind of rings true in this scene as well, right?
Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, this is getting pretty close to him being no longer the good person that Delilah sees here.
Yeah. It's getting stronger.
Oh wow.
So basically, yeah, they figure out where one of the guys is. Now, let's talk about our tragic character here.
Yeah, we haven't really done that much.
So there's the burly guy who cut up Delilah.
Yeah.
And his pal, who was kind of sticking up for his friend at first, but is ultimately very sorry for what happened. He even brings an extra pony to give to Delilah so that she could sell it or do whatever and get something out. He's trying to make it right to the person who was wronged.
He's almost the one true moral compass in this movie.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, for a brief moment, he was sticking up for his pal. He has completely different opinions now. Yeah. And by the time spring comes along and he has to bring the horses, he decides he wants to legitimately try to do the right thing for the person who was wrong.
The best way he knows how,
Right. That's the only thing he can really do. He can't fix her. He can't do anything about what his friend did.
And Delilah's kind of sentimental, right? Like,
yeah. Like, until they throw horse shit at him.
Well, she doesn't do it.
She doesn't.
No, she doesn't. But
that's what I'm saying. She thinks this is a sweet gesture. No, she doesn't. she didn't speak up for herself. I think if she
No,
did,
yes.
she would have stopped the women from throwing the
I
horseshoe.
I absolutely agree. I think, and that could have been the end of the whole thing. Yep.
It could have been, yeah.
Probably.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
you're
the
right.
thing is
I didn't
that
even
like
think of that.
even because like that even makes her a flawed person in that where um she could have just flat out said, "Don't do this. Don't. We're done with it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Don't. You know."
I will say I think the other night I said this is an expertly told story.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing post watching, like, and thinking about the movie is that Delilah's character would not have laughed at the small pecker. That does not ring true to me.
Well, it's very possible that she didn't.
Well, it is very possible that she
She
didn't.
may have just giggled from the shenanigans.
Yeah, and I know
I
you
mean,
kind
we've
of
all
giggled there,
giggled in
Jason,
the
when I said that,
shenanigans.
but it does not seem like a character trait.
If she were, I would guess if she were a very experienced prostitute, probably not. Right.
Okay, but I don't see her laughing at anybody just because of her demeanor.
I think she's very childlike.
Yes, I would agree. Okay, so that I can get behind. Sorry, it just didn't ring true to me post watching.
Still feels very naive to me, very childlike, very almost porcelain, right?
Yeah.
Like fragile. And she's probably lived a pretty rough life, but is also probably not all that emotionally mature.
Yeah, because there are girls there that are younger than her that look way more hardened, like by life.
Well,
For sure.
some of this also wasn't she relatively fresh from Boston? So she already lived someplace kind of nicer and probably had better
Yeah, who
genes.
sells their daughter into home? That's fucking wild.
People who are desperate for,
Yeah.
I mean, but she already came from a place that was cleaner, that was a little nice. Now she's kind of out in the way. All these other people have been kind of weathered by the terrain.
Yeah, and she probably doesn't understand these people either. So a laugh in Boston might be like make someone insecure, but a laugh in Kansas makes someone vicious.
Or maybe she's used to those.
Right?
Maybe she's used to those micro penis guys who want to be humiliated.
Yeah, that's where she was bopped from. She was bopped from a humiliation.
Yeah.
She was in the Monty Python troupe before that. Sorry,
So,
I kind of derailed it there with
no. So but anyway, he does try to make it right. And unfortunately, he's the one they find first and has the far, far worse death. He gets shot and he's forced to kind of bleed out slowly.
Yep.
And this really gets to Will and to Ned. I don't think they were ever in a situation where they had to stick around and hear somebody die slowly.
Yeah.
They were either used to shooting them dead on the spot or they shot and ran off.
Yeah.
But they're also realizing they're not this. Well, at least Ned is realizing I'm not this person.
Well, but I mean, I think this really says something about killing somebody even more so than what we're going to hear about killing somebody later.
Right.
In the sense that why are guns so often used in killing somebody? Because it's done at a distance, and once you do it, you walk away. When you have to kill somebody with your bare hands or with a knife, you have to get intimate with the person. And that makes a whole lot of people unable to do that.
Sure.
And it's a rough and horrible thing to watch and hear somebody die. It doesn't matter if you were used to killing people in the past. If you never had to deal with that, it's a different experience altogether. And if you've changed from that old experience, it's not going to be great. And it's going to leave you with a lot of really bad mojo with you.
Age and wisdom, and yes, like having distance from your old life and then bringing it back into your life, into this person that you are now. Because yes, people do change, right? And this is 10 years later or something like that, right?
20 years later.
20 years later.
I thought it was like it's some nebulous time.
I basically kind of age it based on his kids. It's kind of how I imagine it. So like 10, 12 years, something like that, but whatever. So yeah, there's not this ability to compartmentalize anymore,
Right.
right?
Well, and also
Not only
you
that,
brought up the kids too. You
Yeah.
know, he now
There's a new value of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
not only that, the Schofield kid is there and blind, and he's forcing them to recount what's happening.
Yeah.
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 And that's kind of goes back to your point, Jeff, of walking away from it. Well, now they have to watch it and explain what's happening to the Schofield kid.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Yeah.
one thing for legends to be told about how many people you shot dead 10, 15, 20 years ago. It's a different thing to have to recount it right now.
Yeah, because you can't walk away. You have to tell
Right.
this person who can't see it themselves what's happening. So you have to process it and
Yep.
and
Yeah.
Yep.
And and then like Will even gets mad at the at the other people, because the guy's like, I'm so thirsty. He's like, get him some water, god damn it.
Yeah.
It's like, God, just it's like, end this, please.
Yeah.
This is he's being tortured by kind of that specter of his past.
And it kind of goes back to last week. It's the timeout.
Yeah.
It's the timeout in this battle.
Oh yeah, because he even
collect
says,
your
I ain't gonna
wounded
shoot you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know if that's how real Western things occurred, but there is some gentlemanly stuff happening here.
Well, sure. I mean, let's put it this way: if they had to, they would have blown all the other guys away at the shitter.
Right.
But they didn't have to, so they didn't.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say is that also got to remember, guns back then were highly ineffective. There would have been a lot of people, unless they were shot in the head or directly in the heart, that would have lived long enough to have a horrific death.
Well, long enough to get an infection.
Well, long enough to just have to feel their life ending.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why a lot of people ride off on horses and don't get shot. Because those guns kind of suck compared to now. It's like they're not as accurate back then. So yeah, he winged him. Well, he did more than winged him. He shot him.
Ned winged him. Winged him, and then
he shot him, but I think he said he shot him in the gut.
Yep, definitely.
And so now the guy is just dying. And that's terrible. I mean, it's
well, especially for this kid who tried to save a lesser person from the narrative, right? I'm not saying she's a lesser person, but the narrative makes her lesser. And he tried to help her.
Right.
And then he tried to make amends.
Right.
And then he's kind of the death of any morality in this story. Ned tries to carry it on for him by walking away.
But he gets captured pretty quickly. And
so Ned gives up and gets captured and brought into town. Yeah.
Right. And he gets whipped to death. He basically, Bill does what he does, which is basically try to beat information out of people or beat submission into people. And he
real quick. I've been trying to track this down. The guy who gives them the water is Lachlan Monroe. Really recognizable face, kind of horse teeth guy, but handsome. He's been in everything, but something that we've sort of recently covered that he was in was Freddy versus Jason. He was the sheriff's deputy who actually believes their story and helps them. Yeah.
That's awesome.
The one that was like new to town. That's that same guy.
Okay. Yeah.
For the uninitiated, that's the Jason Snorhees episode.
Yes, indeed. Sorry for that small diversion. It was driving me crazy when I watched it and I forgot to look him up.
Yeah.
Until now.
But so Ned has been taken in, beaten with a bullwhip, and we presume dead. We don't really know this just yet.
Well,
but Will and the Schofield kid have gone to the camp of the real bad guy.
Yeah, and real quick, let's say this real fast. They think Ned's just gone home. So the plan
Yes.
is they're going to kill the other guy. They're going to get the money. They're going to split it, and then Will is going to take Ned's money to his house.
Yeah, Schofield doesn't fully agree with this part of the plan, but Will's like, no, that's what's going to happen.
That's what's going to happen.
Don't worry, Ned. Ned's like, no, I don't want the money. So there is this like three-way kind of disagreement that is amicable in a way, but Will knows that he kind of needs Ned, or at least at this point thinks, I kind of need Ned. This might not end well. But they do. They go to the camp of. Did they ever give the name of those other two cowboys? I don't know if they do.
Oh, I don't know.
I
They
guess
have
it's
names,
unimportant. But the one that is alive is the one that did the cutting.
Yes.
And
yeah,
they decide.
Quick Mike is the cutter.
Yeah.
Okay, Quick Mike. They decide they're going to wait for Quick Mike to take a shit in the outhouse because the Schofield kid can only shoot someone from like 3 feet away.
Right.
It's basically their plan, and they just wait him out.
Oh,
Davy was the other guy. Davy was the first guy, and then Quick Mike. So yeah,
You're right. I did write down they killed Davy.
Now, meanwhile, because of the information that they got from Ned, they assign a tubby deputy, which they constantly make reference to him being fat.
Right.
They basically assign people to protect Davy or Quick Mike. That to me only makes things worse because now you're protecting somebody who's already you've now twice protected somebody who did a really shitty thing.
Well, it's kind of like witness protection, right? It's sort of like this is a bad person, but we have to protect their life because we can't allow frontier justice.
We're trying to become civilized.
Right.
Yeah.
Frontier justice is not civilization. Everything has to have its law and order. And while yes, the justice that was served was inadequate, it's not for it. There has to be this separation, right, between who is doing justice. You can't take justice in your own hands, right? So
right.
So I it's okay, but yeah, I mean they're clearly the villains at this point, but there's still a gray area here. It's not black and white. Nobody's a good guy or a bad guy. There's just shades of gray.
Right.
No, the good guy is dead.
Well, yeah, exactly, and that's what tips the scales.
Yes.
Quite honestly,
yeah,
is the death of Ned. Yep, because that was wholly injustice. On the part of Gene Hackman's character to do that exactly, and then to use his body, desecrate his body as a warning to others is unforgivable.
It's Unforgiven.
Unforgiven.
It's not Unforgiven yet. But
nope.
Yes, you're right.
But my favorite line of the movie is right here. The Schofield kid, as they're waiting and waiting and waiting for is it Davy Bunting or Quick Mike?
It's Quick Mike.
For Quick Mike to come out, he says he's holding on to his shit like it were money.
That is funny. I thought you were going to go with another line after he killed him because I think he says it's a hell of a thing killing a man.
Yeah. So, well, we're okay.
I do like this line.
So wait, wait, everybody, hang on a second. Fucking pile. Hang back
well,
here.
you already said Ned was dead in front of the bar. That was after this.
Well, yeah,
ahead.
okay, yeah, but hang on.
Well, it's not after this, but it's not known to them yet.
All right. So this is the from this point forward, this movie is just some of the best fucking cinema ever. So yeah, so he kills him and he
kills who? He kills who?
He kills Quick Mike. So
Schofield kid does.
Schofield kid kills Quick Mike in the outhouse.
With the gun.
Exactly.
Sorry, it sounded very Clue-like when you were explaining
it. Well, it's like Tuco's got the news. So they go and they've done the job now. So they have a spot outside of town that they wait for one of the whores to bring the
Payment.
bounty
Yeah.
out. And while they are coming out, or while the girl is coming out to them, it's a long, long trip out there because you just see her way off in the distance, and they have a whole deep ass conversation about what happened here.
Yep.
And he's like, the Schofield kid's not doing great. He's hit the bottle pretty hard. He admits that he had never killed somebody before. That was his first, and and Will is like, take a drink, kid, because he knows that will deaden his what he's feeling.
Right.
And so and that's when he's like, yeah, just like that guy out just like that kid out in the ravine, we shot him. He ain't ever gonna take a breath again. It's like he's really wrestling with what he had done. And of course, this is really bad for him for a couple of reasons. One, he's never killed somebody before, like he admits, but he had to do his up close. I mean, he couldn't do it from a distance like Ned and Will did.
But he's also seen it now.
Now he's
seen
seen
the
it.
other guy.
Right. He didn't see the other guy. He's now witnessed somebody take their last breath. And he's like, he just was in there taking a shit and I shot him. And, and then he's like, he ain't ever going to breathe again. And that's when Clint Eastwood says one of my favorite lines in all of movie history. It's a hell of a thing killing a man. You take away everything he's got and everything he's ever going to have. And that is like, that's a great line. And there's a great line that follows this too.
I know which one. I think. I'll let you say it though. But okay. I'm pretty sure.
Well, and then, basically he says, well, I guess he had it coming then.
Yep.
And he says, we all got it coming, kid.
Yep.
It's the one thing you can't ever escape. We all, it's like we're all gonna
die.
We're all
gonna taxes, baby.
I like the thing that sets up both those lines that he says. And it's right after the kid tells him he's never killed a man before. And he says to him, Money says to him, well, you sure killed the hell out of that fella today.
Yeah.
And then those two lines come later, and they're each line is kind of tailored to the emotion of the scene, right?
Yeah.
And to what the kid needs to hear.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And it is really good. It's a great scene.
That is what I'd like to call an Oscar-winning moment.
Yeah.
That's the scene that won Best Picture, I think. Because it really lands home everything that, like, really in the end, this movie is, kind of anti-violence in that sense, that it needs to say, it needs to show it, but then it needs to say, this is the bad stuff to it.
Because everything that follows this is
blind vengeance.
But it's the reason that Clint Eastwood needed to say the things he said there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, this is what you didn't see 30 years ago that led me to these thoughts and feelings or whatever. Because he becomes, you want to call him Billy the Money? Billy the Kid.
Money,
he becomes that guy again at this moment. And it really annoys me. I'm sorry. It's the one thing that annoys me about this movie is that he takes a drink in this scene. It's like, don't let the alcohol be don't justify what he's been saying. Let him do this stuff and then take the drink to kill those senses like you were talking about, Jeff.
Right? Yeah. I think that, and I think that really honestly, because his whole demeanor has changed when he's standing on that hill with the kid. He looks mean now.
Well, yeah, he's
the whole thing has fallen away. So he's basically living his old life again.
1000%. But don't let the drink be the reason or appear to be the reason.
I don't think that, to me, I don't take it that way, though. I take it more of it like he needs it to steel himself. Like he needs it to bridge the gap between who he is now and who he used to be.
I can totally agree with
To channel that version of himself. However, I do think like it would be a fucking amazing moment if after he wastes everyone in that bar that he goes and he pours himself a
that.
drink.
Yeah, 100%.
That is like the stinger on that scene, in my opinion. Yep.
Yeah.
So
let's talk about that.
let's
Though.
well, yeah. So the girl finally comes, and I always like to think that girl who's coming with the money for money, he is coming out, or basically, she is the writer that he
The
kind of
Harbinger?
saw earlier, and that she's basically come to take his soul, because what she says next is that because he's like, all right, let's go count this. And the Schofield kid now doesn't really want anything to do with this. He's like, I don't care, I don't want it. He's like, well, what about the spectacle? What about the nice clothes? Like, it ain't worth it. It just ain't worth it anymore to me. He's like, well, you're gonna take this and take Ned's portion. And she's like, Ned? And he's like, yeah. It's like, no, Ned's dead. It's like, and he gets kind of mad. He was like, no, he's not dead. He went south. He's fine. He's like, oh no, they caught him and they hung a sign on him. It's like, they hung a sign. It's like this repeating back to her, that line is like, uh-oh.
So he does
like,
this whole movie.
Yeah, don't. Well, the one thing, this movie should be called I Guess or I Suppose the movie, because that's how he downplays his legend is, I guess that's the way it happened, or I suppose that's the way it went. But also he was like blind drunk the entire time that he built his legend.
Yeah, doesn't remember. He probably doesn't remember half of the shit he did. Yeah.
Right.
I thought it should have been called Seven Ponies for a Cut Whore, but whatever.
Well, that's the Italian title.
You're right, actually.
It is. Yeah. It probably literally is. So anyway, so he's like, kid, get out of here, and lady, you should probably go back to town, and it's time for him to go. It's time for him to go to work at this point.
Yep.
So
to work he does go.
Oh boy. So he goes into town, and it's storming, of course, and he sees that he sees the coffin that Ned's in, and it's got a sign on him basically saying, this is what we do with assassins and big whiskey.
Yep.
Which he wasn't, because that's the other thing he says, like, they killed Ned for what we did.
Right.
And it's like, this is where it really kind of comes down to, if you're going to do something to somebody, it should happen to Will Money.
Right.
At this point. So and
here's your chance.
Yeah. And so he shows up in town, and in the bar, in Skinny's bar, we've got Little Bill and all of his gang, and they're celebrating. Basically, it's like, yeah, we got him. Yeah, fuck them, fuck those assassins, and anybody else who wants to come in and collect this money. And they're doing it in front of the payees, the payers rather.
They're forming a posse, is what they're doing, because they're going to go after the Schofield kid and William Money, because word's gotten back to them that they got the other guy. Technically, they fucking failed miserably in protecting those two guys, and now they're forming a posse. But don't spend too much of your own money, because government can only pay so much to fund this expedition.
Right, exactly.
And they're gonna go after him.
Right.
But guess what? You don't have far to go.
Yeah, because they hear something at the swinging doors, and Little Bill recognizes who this is. He's like, you'd be William Money out of Missouri, killer of women and children. And the next great line of this movie is, that's right, I've killed women and children. I've killed just about everything that walks or crawled at one time or another, and I'm here to kill you, Little Bill, for what you did to Ned. And it's like, oh shit. It's like Clint Eastwood just showed up. And he does shoot one guy who's
he's like, who's the owner of this establishment or this bar? Yeah.
And Skinny comes out and is like, "That's me." Bam! He just takes him down for. He's like, you just killed, you sir are a coward. You just killed an unarmed man. And he's like,
He
"Well, you
didn't
should
like
have."
he didn't like that they was using his partner Ned as an adornment on his bar.
Yep.
That's the
Yep.
much worse version of the line. But he said he should have armed himself if you're going to decorate his bar with my friend.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if you had the line. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it right
Yeah.
here.
I didn't write it down.
Well, no, but before Skinny comes out, it's like, who's the fellow that owns the shithole? And the he looks over at the fat dude, and it's like, you fat man. You just killed his charge. You just killed the guy he was in charge of. Look, now you're putting him down. It's like, but yeah, so he's gonna shoot Lil Bill, and now Lil Bill is like, hey, he's only got one more barrel left. When he shoots me, shoot him down like the dog that he is. And what happens?
Misfire.
Yeah. So he just blows everybody away with the 6-shooter at that point.
And they've
Yeah, they're
been
all close
talking
enough.
about how I can't remember who English Bob killed, but he had a misfire that blew his hand off.
Yes.
So this shit happens, and it was set up, and a misfire happens here, and then the real Old West, which is William Money, and not this new scared
New
police New West, right? Because everyone that was in the force, like, they were the Schofield kid.
Yeah.
They think they're tough, but they never killed anybody. They never shoot anybody. Well, guess who has?
West. Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like everybody, when, like, even when Lil Bill is saying, it's like when he fires his second barrel, pull your guns and shoot him down. And they don't look so sure about this.
No, 100%. They're not.
No,
They're
and
scared.
it
Yeah.
takes a lot to pull a trigger, right? And but it doesn't take a lot for William Money to pull a trigger, and that's
No.
why he wins the day here. He takes out Lil Bill because he is the biggest threat. And then
Yes.
from there it's just shooting the Duck of Dukes in the barrel, right?
Yeah. Does
Right.
does he kill Beauchamp, or does he let him
No,
go?
he lets Beauchamp go.
No, he lets Beauchamp go.
And the final time for
Beauchamp has got the fat man laying on him.
yeah,
Beauchamp is going to go tell the story of William Money.
Oh, absolutely.
right. But for the
Yeah.
third time of the movie, he's like, "No, I'm a writer. Writer of what? Letters? No, books."
Well,
The
I
rule
mean,
of three.
it's a funny joke, but it's also like, this is like William
Well,
Money
it's-
didn't understand a new world.
Well, this is
At all.
There's another
this
thing
is
here, too.
civilization creeping into these people's lives that aren't.
That's what I'm
used
saying.
to
William Money doesn't know the new
Well,
civilization. Go ahead, Jason. Sorry.
There's another thing here too, is that he's using his reputation in this moment and
Oh, yeah.
after, especially after,
Yeah,
because the Gene Hackman, Lil Bill, has already declared who this man is. That name probably has meaning to everyone in this
Resonates
room.
with somebody.
Right. They know who he is. They know his legend, I'm sure. He then immediately kills his first shot out of his revolver is he kills Lil Bill, the only one who could probably rouse.
he
Doesn't kill him, but
Right.
but puts him down.
But he puts him down. Yeah,
The only one who could probably rouse any kind of courage out of these guys, right? Because they believe to this point in how tough and mean Lil Bill is. Now Lil Bill's down, and they're shitless. They
well,
don't know
yeah,
what they're
because
doing.
at one point, they even said, as Bill's legend was growing, the deputies were all like, "I've never seen Lil Bill in trouble or
Right.
scared," and it's like they kind of laugh it off, like he can't be scared.
Right.
He just sucks as a carpenter.
And now he's down.
But
And now
like you said earlier, Jeff, this movie is all about story.
Mhm.
And English Bob might have had the biggest legend of anybody, and Little Bill puts him down quite
Right.
easily.
Right.
William Money has his own legend, but it doesn't even matter once he puts Little Bill down, because he
Right.
put down two legends at the same
Yep.
time,
Right.
right? Like it's very
It's stacked upon itself to where, yeah, he's the alpha now in this
Yes.
situation.
1000%.
And so and so when he blows everybody away and then he lets Beauchamp off and he's like, get out of here. Because like he even says, it's like, basically, if you don't get out of here now, you're gonna join this. Yeah, and he's like gone. And he like straightens himself up and he's gone. He goes over to Little Bill, and Little Bill's like, I don't deserve this. I was building a home, or I was building a house. And Will basically says it to him. It's like, yeah, deserves got nothing to do with it. He's an asshole, and and that asshole's got to go. At least asshole to our protagonist in this case. And he blows his fucking head off.
Well, not before he says,
I'll see you in hell, Will.
I'll see you in hell. And I love the what Eastwood says back. It's so simple. He just says, yeah. Right. There's no quippy one-liner. Right. It's just,
he knows where he's going.
It's just an agreement.
Yeah. It's like, yep, that's where you're going to see me. And that's even Little Bill kind of admitting to himself or admitting to us as the audience that he knows where he's headed too. He's not done. He's not perfect either.
Right.
And it's like, he just tried to cop to this new world. Faster than everybody else did. In a way, I guess you could say Bill is almost like a futurist in this kind of way. Is like
he's sort of opportunist too.
Sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Bill was no better than Will.
No, I'm sure he wasn't. Yeah. So then Will's now got to leave. And he's like, all right, I'm coming out. Any man I see out there, I'm going to shoot him. Any sumbitch takes a shot at me, I'm not only going to kill him, but I'm going to kill his wife, all his friends, and burn his damn house down.
Yep. And this is where he's learned to use his legend, right?
Yep.
That's the only way he gets out of this situation is if they're fucking terrified of him.
He's got one more line. He gets on his horse. Now, by the way, he gets on his horse perfectly now.
Yep.
And he says, you better bury Ned right. Better not cut up nor otherwise harm no whores, or I'll come back and kill every one of you sons of bitches.
Yep.
And he rides off and picks up his kids and moves to San Francisco.
Not into the sunset, which I think
runs into the sunrise.
Yeah.
And he runs off in a storm that is like, he is the storm that came to Big Whiskey.
Yep.
Big whiskey, baby.
Big whiskey.
So basically it ends with, we find out that he left. He didn't give any notice because he knows that this isn't going to end. He leaves to go to San Francisco. Some say he hit it big with dry goods. And his wife's mother went out to visit her daughter's grave and ponder why she ended up with a man who killed women and children.
Yep.
It's kind of a powerful ending too, which is funny because it's not really connected. The opening and closings are not really connected to the movie other than to kind of indicate what life Will Money had. And
I don't agree with that fully.
Okay.
I think we know why she married him, because he would defend those he loved with reckless abandon.
That's fair.
That's the way I took it. It's like they're asking a question kind of at the end, but he answered it by how he treated Ned. That's the way I looked at it. But
that's No, I'm on board with that. I'll go with that.
I think there is interpretation there though. What she saw in him, we may never really know, right?
Right.
Because when she did meet him, he was a no good son of a bitch.
Right.
We only know the character that he exhibited in the movie.
Right.
And that's what I'm placing on those questions for sure.
I think we need a prequel that explains everything.
Oh yes, please. My favorite
about
thing
their
ever.
relationship. In fact, not even a movie. Let's make it a
10-part Hulu series?
a 12-hour episode series. Yes.
Oh,
Let's call it unsolicited.
Unwanted.
Yeah, because he takes himself off wanted posters when he
Yeah.
goes
There you
good.
go. There you go.
And
Unwanted.
also, I would hate every moment of that. I would bitch and moan about that so hard.
I really
Uh,
do think this is a very expertly told story.
But oh yeah, absolutely. One quick question though, real quick. Do you think Sally Two Feathers gave him the evil eye when she brought Ned's portion to her? Because she gave him the evil eye
she gave him the
when he
evil eye when they left. Yeah.
1000%.
Yeah, because that whole conversation there, it's like she gave me the evil eye. It's like
Yeah.
that's the way he says it. So just commute.
Yes.
Well, and
Sally-
Ned's response is they're not usually nice to people.
Yeah.
Basically, is the way
Well,
he
she saw him when he was who he was
Yeah.
before, and he actually has a line for that. He says something along the lines of, "Well, she ain't accounting or allowing that I changed."
Yeah. Which
Well,
is
she's
that's
Like,
right.
well, he saw you. She saw you who you were. Yeah.
And
that's
she's
an
right.
interesting line too,
Yeah,
because
she is right.
well, she is right, but that's an interesting line too, because again, that whole the court of public opinion,
Mm-hmm.
which is where all these legends and all these, when how most people view other people is going to be through what's been tried and handed down by the court of public opinion. There are absolutely people like that who will not allow for anyone to change, regardless of what they do to make up for it.
Yeah, and but also the only legend that was 100% accurate in this movie was the one of William Money.
That's true. That's true. He is a mean son of a bitch.
Yep.
He didn't kill any women or children this time, though.
No, he didn't. He
I
didn't
mean, you
have
could
to.
kind of say Davy was a little bit of a kid just because he was kind of young and stupid. But I mean, he was an adult. He knew
Well,
what he was
he's
doing.
kind of the good version of the Schofield kid
Right.
in ways like the yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Good movie though.
Yeah,
Really
this
like it.
is this is one of I think I have no problem saying this is maybe top 5 or 6 of the entire 90s for me. Easy.
Yeah, I mean it's wonderful. I haven't seen this in a long time. Probably not since the early 2000s.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
and I don't think I saw this in the theater, but I feel like I did. It's weird. Like
I
it's one of those
did,
movies. It's one of those movies that came around at a time that I did try to see like a lot of stuff,
well, it came out during the summer originally,
but I
and
would have
then
been
they
like
held it.
13, and I
Yeah.
don't remember seeing it. But
This came out in the summer, and they held it back from going out onto VHS to bring it back for Oscar season. And when it
yeah,
came back in the winter, that's when I went and saw
I
it.
think that's when I saw it too, actually, because that would track. Because my dad and my dad's a big Western fan. He likes Clint Eastwood. But he's more of a John Wayne guy. Go figure. But I do remember seeing this movie with him. I just can't recall if it was in the theater or not. Yeah,
I think,
but I've seen it since for sure.
yeah, because
Yeah,
I remember definitely seeing this, and I saw this and The Crying Game right around the same time, and I had seen A Few Good Men and Sin of a Woman earlier when they came out originally, I think. But I remember seeing both Unforgiven and The Crying Game as they got wider re-releases for the Oscar time after their nominations. But yeah, no, I mean, I would put this. I don't know. I think at some point in time we may have a discussion around movies that we like from certain decades at some point down the line. Maybe.
sure.
So we'll table that and what I would also put with the other great movies of the 90s. But this is there. This is with
Yep.
it.
Oh, well, for sure. Most certainly.
Right there with probably Drop Dead Fred and Rocky 5.
Drop Dead Fred is fucking awesome.
Well,
I
it is
did
good.
really like, and still do really like Scent of Woman.
It's a fine movie. It's just
Love
it's not Unforgiven.
No, I agree. I agree with the choice made.
I mean,
Best Picture this
the
year.
Crying Game is probably a little bit more interesting movie as it being very different. But it wasn't going to win Best Picture, even though it got better reviewed than the others.
That would have been a pretty big surprise. Yeah.
This is one of those movies, one of the few movies that we talked about the 2020 awards before. This one still retained Best Picture.
Yeah. I agree with that assessment. It's been a while since I've seen a Crying Game, but it hasn't been that long.
And A Few Good Men is pretty good stuff too, but it's almost kind of manufactured for that.
Yeah, it's a
nomination.
little like modern melodrama a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I quote
mean,
that movie as much as any movie in history, probably.
well, sure, and
that one line is just like
well,
it's
that's
forever burned into the zeitgeist. People will be saying that 100 years from now and have no idea what they're quoting.
but
Yeah.
but it is a good
But
scene.
that's
though.
happening now, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
It
it's
is
a good scene. It's a great scene, and
Yeah.
the the crescendo to Nicholson, admitting that he did the thing, and again, it's one of those situations where Tom Cruise's reaction to that is what sells that scene totally. That he
Maybe
cannot
we sh-
believe that he just
That he
did that.
actually did it. Yeah.
Right.
It's
But-
like his hubris wouldn't allow him to take this punishment on the stand any longer.
Right, exactly.
Y'all should table this for our discussion later.
Maybe.
About A Few Good Men.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But Gene Hackman absolutely deserved Best Supporting Actor for this. He is everything that this movie absolutely needed to work.
He's perfect
Yeah,
in this role. 1000%
Yeah.
perfect.
Truly.
and I mean, he's scary. He's likable. He's all those things. So
Yeah.
Well, like you guys said, Clint Eastwood is actually acting in this movie, but
Yes.
he needs these people around him.
he needed to. Well, he ended up winning for Best Director. He had to direct these other people around him.
But
Yeah.
even in any movie, like even we were talking about last week, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Clint Eastwood is enough to make me interested, but he can't carry a film.
Right.
Eli Wallach carried
Yeah. Yeah.
The Good, the
Yeah.
Bad, and the Ugly. Gene Hackman carried this movie in a lot of ways. Like
Absolutely.
Clint Eastwood is not that guy. As
Right.
good as you want to say he is, he's not that guy.
No,
So-
and he's he is only that guy with Dirty Harry, probably.
Yeah.
Because even if you look at something like In the Line of Fire, he needs John Malkovich to rise up against him.
And I will say Dirty Harry is more the character than Clint Eastwood, but yes,
Sure. but he's carrying
even
that
with
on his own.
Unforgiven, he's using much like the movie, the script is using his legend as William Money. Clint Eastwood is using his image and his legend from the
1,000.
Leone films, right?
1000%.
So he's able to carry all of that into this character before they even fucking shoot a frame of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing, right?
Yeah.
It is, but also for a guy in 92 who liked this movie, never saw the Leone films before it. So that has
But
to
we
say
still-
something about
We still
know the
the
legend.
It still has to
stature
be a
of
good
him.
Yeah.
story, and
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But that just adds so much richness to
it definitely does for me now,
Yeah.
knowing all of those films.
Yep.
1000%.
and that's a lot of what it was, a lot of the critical reviews were referencing it as well. Like it was definitely part of the conversation at the time.
Yeah.
One more quick thing I do want to bring up here is the one other thing that Clint Eastwood did for this movie was he wrote the Claudius theme that played at the beginning and end.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how much he actually wrote music. He wrote a lot of music. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Not-
Well, didn't he do? He's done movies where he shows off his ability to play the piano.
yeah, he's a musician.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's even written Oscar-winning music, hasn't he? I think he's won an Oscar.
I
for
don't think
some
I
of
don't
his-
I don't think he's won an Oscar for his
I'm gonna
music.
look it up while you're doing your wrap up.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll look that up. We'll do this, and so next week. So we're gonna put Clint Eastwood to bed. Time to go to bed, old man. That's mean. That's mean. I shouldn't say that. He's still kicking. He's still doing great.
Put him in his chair.
Put put perfect. That's perfect. You wanted to know who was sitting in that chair. Well, you can have that seat now. Now we're gonna shift into the final phase of Western Month next week and start talking about a couple of actual real legends.
Yeah.
And we're gonna start with Sam Peckinpah's Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. And that should be pretty good. It's Chris Christopherson and shit, it's escaping me now.
Bob Dylan.
Well, Bob Dylan is in it.
I was just trying to kill dead air there.
Yeah. It's God, it's James Coburn. Jesus Christ.
Yes, Coburn.
Yeah, Coburn. James Coburn playing Pat Garrett, Chris Christopherson as Billy the Kid, Bob Dylan as Alias.
I'm excited.
Yeah, that should be good stuff.
That.
Jason Robards is also in it. So this is a good cast and a good director. It's going to be good. All the music by Bob Dylan. It's a really good album too.
Yep.
So good stuff coming next week. I hope Jason is questioning the goodness of it, but we'll see.
Oh, no. I've never seen it. So I just know it's got a bit of a troubled had a troubled production and was mixed reviews when it came out. But I'm excited.
So its reputation is coming into town with a little bit of question.
Well, his original reputation, but reevaluation by Lil Bill figured it out. He's figured it out. So he's told us the real reputation that should have. So that is going to be
question about musical nominations. None on the Academy side, but he has been nominated for several scores and songs on the Golden Globe side.
Oh, okay.
He was nominated for Best Original Score and Best Original Song for Grace Is Gone. Best Original Score for The Changeling. Best Original Song for Gran Torino.
The Changeling?
Yeah, he wrote the score. Yeah. So
there you go. All right.
Yeah.
So he was probably shortlisted at some point in the past for a nomination, but didn't get it.
Probably.
I'm curious when he and Tuco are going to blow up the bridges of Madison County.
I would watch that movie. That feels like a Weird Al thing that's has missed its window.
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little old, long in the tooth.
A little bit.
All right, where can they find us, Jeff?
Yeah, so you can go to filmseizure.com. That's the easiest way, direct, right to it. But if you must go to another outlet, there's SoundCloud, there's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and Audible. Just search for Film Seizure. That should do it. So yeah, Wednesday's new episodes, Pat Garrett, Billy the Kid, this upcoming Wednesday. This upcoming Monday, my episode of Monster Mondays is for Todd Browning's Freaks. I'm excited for that because that is a very good movie that I think people misunderstand.
Sure.
Because the titular freaks are actually the good guys. They're not being poked fun at.
Yep.
So it's we'll talk about that. I
think people misunderstand it because they haven't actually seen the movie.
Probably. So so I'll talk about that. But hey, guess what, guys? This Friday is the 350th B Movie Enema article.
What insane! Didn't you just do 200, or was that Monster Mondays?
That was Monster Mondays. Last month was 200 Monster Monday.
How many years is that?
That's like over 6 years.
Yeah. So I went. So I did 6 in 2014. When I came back in spring of 2016. Pretty much since then, except for the little brief period of time that I took off for a maternity leave, so that Jason and I could give birth to Film Seizure.
You were the mother?
Yes.
The ugly mother.
Yeah.
You one ugly mother. We should cover Predator.
Yeah, we
Go ahead.
should probably. But anyway, so this Friday, 350th B movie Enema, and I'm going to to an inspiration. And I'm going to talk about the Angry Video Game Nerd movie.
Oh,
So there you go.
Cool.
So yeah, so that is at bmovieenema.com if you are so inclined to check that out. But let's keep all eyes forward for Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid next Wednesday. Freaks on Monday. Good stuff. Until next week, I have not killed women and children, but I have been Jeff Arbuckle.
I'm Ned Theodore Logan.
Oh my, I'm Jason Oliver, and you've been listening to Film Seizure.